Okay, thanks for reading the Bible with me. I'm having a hard time getting through this one. I keep crying. So I'm just going to dive in. Luke 23, 44 to 56. Read with me. It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour, for the sun stopped shining. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." When he had said this, he breathed his last. The centurion, seeing what happened, praised God and said, "This man was a righteous man." When all the people who had gathered to witness this sight saw what took place, they beat their breasts and went away. But all those who knew him, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance, watching these things. Now there was a man named Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man who had not consented to their decision and action. He came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and he was waiting for the kingdom of God. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen cloth, and placed it in a tomb cut in the rock, one which no one had yet been laid in. It was preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to begin. The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph and saw the tomb and how his body was laid in it. Then they went home and prepared spices and perfumes, but they rested on the Sabbath in obedience to the commandment. By this point in the narrative, it's noon, which is relevant because for 3 hours in the middle of the day, the land was dark. You can work at accounting for that through some natural phenomenon, but I defy you to explain how the temple curtain tore from top to bottom. The Bible doesn't actually tell us about the curtain, but a Jewish historian named Josephus, who saw the temple with his own eyes, recorded that the curtain was about 60 feet high and about 4 inches thick. It divided the holy place, which is an area of the temple for sacred assembly, from the Holy of Holies, which was the area reserved for the presence of God and was only visited by a priest on very rare occasions. If you recall, Zechariah at the beginning of this whole story was one of those priests. When that curtain tore, a symbolic barrier between God and humans disappeared. The God who could only be approached by one select representative of the Jews and only after an elaborate purification process was suddenly accessible. Why and how? Because when Jesus called out to his Father and breathed his last, that elaborate purification process, the one that involved not the death of an animal but the death of a Son of God, was completed. This purification undertaken by this death was final, complete, and perfect. The crowd that had gathered was shaken. They were overcome with a sense of loss, and they went away mourning. Even the centurion who was there to oversee the execution knew something horribly unjust had happened. The man executed people for a living, but in that moment he fell to his knees and exclaimed that Jesus was an innocent man. No one who witnessed Jesus' death was unaffected, but standing at a distance was a cluster of people who could make absolutely no sense of what they were watching. Jesus' friends, including some women who had followed him, cared for him, and provided for him throughout his travels, stood watching as the source of all their hope and joy fell limp. A well-dressed figure quietly, respectfully approached the cross and had the body of Jesus taken down. We're told his name was Joseph. He was from Arimathea, and although he was a member of the council, he had opposed the decision of the religious leaders who had killed Jesus. Luke also tells us that he was waiting for the kingdom of God. If many around him had lost or distorted the faith, he had not. The Bible doesn't mention him after we hear that he laid Jesus' gently wrapped body in his own new tomb nearby. Some of Jesus' friends followed to see where he put the body before they went home to assemble the spices and ointments that were traditionally used to prepare a body for burial. By then it was getting dark. The following day was Saturday, the Sabbath, which began at sundown. Jesus had taught them that healing on the Sabbath honored God, but Jesus was dead. He was beyond healing. The events of this past chapter are the events that are commemorated on the day we call Good Friday. I've often imagined that Saturday. If you've lost someone you love deeply, you know that surreal sense that something unthinkable has just occurred. You have all this love and nowhere to put it. It's an awful feeling. And I think this was much worse. It had been roughly 3 years since Jesus was baptized by his cousin John and then began selecting a group of people to love and mentor. There had been so much excitement. It was a 3-year whirlwind of brilliant teaching, constant miracles, and a growing, radiating sense of anticipation that something wonderful was about to happen. Only a week before, Jesus was honored like a victorious king as he entered the city, and now he was dead, and it was all over. I imagine them sitting quietly in a house as the darkness of nightfall grows. No one thinks to light a lamp. Light feels farcical. The light's dead. What is there to see? As they sit in silence, they would swear they were completely numb, except that fear begins to taunt them. They must have wondered if they were going to be next. Take a deep breath and feel this for a minute. Because there is something about the taste of sorrow that brings out all of the best flavors when we finally bite into joy. So sit with Jesus, friends. They lived through a whole day of this. Friday night was horrifying. Saturday was a terrible fog that no one really ever talks about anymore because it's not even worth remembering. But Sunday was coming. And this is about to get so good. I spent most of the day before I wrote this just writing through and reading through the crucifixion. Even though I know how it ends, I was exhausted. The sadness and unfairness of it all just wore me out. I slept like I'd spent the whole day digging in my garden. But a new day is about to dawn, and next time we will enter the story just before sunrise. See you then.